everyone. Today on 9th of December, on the 8th commemoration of SH Act of celebration of SH Act and yeah, I have just forgot this. It was we have come for the awareness program on the sexual harassment of women or at workplace, and we would like to invite our director, Madam Professor Tanushi Shah Dasgupta, for her welcome note.
First of all, on behalf of December Center of Basic Sciences, a warm welcome to my colleagues and students to this awareness program on sexual harassment of women at workplace act, which was notified in 2013 on this day, 9th December. And the ministry has taken a mission to commemorate the notification of this act in terms of organizing awareness program, in fact, countrywide. And it is very gratifying to see that they have taken such a step. And not only that, in fact, we are supposed to summarize this activity and send us a report of this. So, which means that they are actually very serious of this awareness program. And in today's program, there are very interesting and I think will be very educative talks by three of very distinguished speakers. Professor Suchetana Chatterjee, she is going to talk about the diversity and inclusivity in physics, the road forward. And she is the presiding officer of our ICC, and she is also the assistant professor in Presidency University. And I think that will basically set the stage to get to the next talk, which will be given by Dr. M.T. Chengappa, and he will talk about the legal aspect, the protection against sexual harassment at workplace, a constitutional perspective. And the third and the last talk of this session will be given by Professor Jayashree Das Sarma, professor in ISA Kolkata. In fact, she was also a former chairperson of their ICC. And she will talk about preventing and responding to sexual harassment by implementing Harassment Act in higher education institutions. This issue actually is of immense importance, as you can realize, because we have been, in fact, in the whole world, there have been a lot of awareness about the equality and equity. So unless we can bring in that, you have to actually appreciate you are going to lose half of your workforce if you keep the women at home. At the same time, the more and more women comes and contributes in the workforce, we have to also ensure their safety. In fact, one of the issues that was discussed, why we have so few women in different sectors of professional world, there are many reasons. But one of the reasons is also lack of a safe environment. And it is the responsibility of all of us to ensure this safe environment. I think following the actually vision of a great mind like Swami Vivekananda, who actually realized long back, and what he said, it is actually the responsibility of the men. The more and more women, they become independent and come and join the workforce, it becomes also the responsibility of the men to give them the proper environment. So the equality or equity is not some issue which is actually that of the women, but it is the responsibility of also the men. It is the responsibility of all of us to build up a safe and equal world. It is totally up to us how we want to shape it. So without spending much words, I welcome you once again and I look forward to 3 very exciting talks.
Now I would like to invite Secretary for her.
So thank you, Ms. Konard, and also thanks to SN Bose, first of all, for organizing such a program. It's very, very important, and I'm very glad to see that there is large participation, even at this pandemic times. This huge participation, mostly probably from most of them are students, I assume. It's really heartening to see that. The last time I was in this podium was for a little bit sad moment for all of us when we lost Professor Mukherjee. And so this is 2 years in the pandemic. I'm first time speaking to an audience. So that's kind of excitement for me personally. And so as Professor Shahada Gupta said, she actually completely set the tone and actually set the motivation for why we chose the talks in this order and why am I going to speak about the topic diversity and inclusivity in physics. So can I get my talk, please? So, okay. Yeah, I can hear. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. So we used to have laser pointers. Right. So I use these 2 terms, diversity and inclusivity, and these are often used. I mean, people like actually use them, but both of them have actually little bit. They are kind of related, but there is some subtle difference. So let's start first, as our director, Professor Shahada Gupta said. Let us see that why are we talking. So this is a sexual harassment awareness workshop. So why am I talking about diversity and inclusivity here? And exactly for the cause that Professor Rajgupta said, that we need to retain talent in your workforce. I'll talk specifically in terms of physics, but there will be examples from other fields also. And why is that necessary? So let's get to the crux of the talk. So equity is related to, this is Merriam dictionary definition, fairness or justice in the way people are treated. Equity is related to social justice and equal treatment and equal access of resource. Okay. Now, this is of course the question of social justice. Now, we are talking particularly in terms of women's sexual harassment of women, so I'll focus more on women. But we understand that social justice is an issue that we often speak in terms of people getting, equally sharing access among all aspects of society, all corners of society, marginalized groups getting represented, and so and so. But I'll speak in terms of women's issues, like gender issues today. So gender, for example, is again a very complicated term. It's sociologists can discuss the complexity and the social cultural notion of gender. I mean, but for me, someone like layman like me, I will just use the simple stick to the working notion of gender as we understand. But let me tell you, gender itself is a very complex notion. So I'll just use men and women as we understand. And then in the context of equity, let's put women, as we know, consist of roughly 50% of the world's population. But if we think in terms of social, financial, cultural, intellectual attributes, there is huge underrepresentation of 50% of the world's population. So definitely we are doing something that's not kind of close to what the Merriam Dictionary expects us to do in terms of social justice. So that's the justice part, that if the access, the resources are not equally distributed. Okay? In fact, there is huge disparity. So now comes the question of inclusivity. So that's and diversity. Why? So for example, we know that even as kids we mingle with people in college, in school we mingle around with people who are like-minded, right? So it's very natural, common nature of people to hang out with people they find are similar to them, right? So it's very easy to get along with people and talk to them who are like you. But then, who are like you? We'll come to that. This is where the notion fails, and you have to very critically think about it. Now, of course, it's easy, but then lot of social science experiments. These are real people scientifically working on the problem. They have shown, and it has been seen in the history of humankind, that diverse group is true that experience more conflict, but then when there is conflict, there is creation of new ideas. So diversity is welcome, that is, if it's well managed, diverse ideas lead to better solutions. Not just in physics, but in all aspects, all scales of life. If diversity is unwelcome, diverse groups fail. So we need the proper kind of management, proper kind of leadership, proper kind of structure, so that we really welcome and make the best use of diverse talents, diverse groups. Now, this is one example from history that great civilizations have often arisen at the intersection of trade routes, where people of different societies encountered new ways of thinking. So my first, I think, appeal, maybe, I don't know, but I think first let us all think that, yes, it's true that we get along with our friends, we love to be with our friends, but let me tell you that to solve important social problems, we must enhance our friend base. So we have to make friends with everyone and welcome diversity. And as said that now in the context of, because all of us are physicists probably in this room, are doing science, so as scientists, as educationists, as mentors, we have students, we have to mentor. Students come from different backgrounds, they have different socio-economic, attributes. So we have to do a lot of things. We need to be creative, we need to write our research papers, open to ideas, be visionary, because we have to make these big institutions, run them, and grow our institutions, understand people, because we are always dealing with people, work in large group. This is not just from the administrative point of view, but also from the scientific point of view, and I'm going to immediately show some examples that how important it is to work in large groups, okay, to make something successful, big things, and invoke leadership qualities in people. And all of this gets much better if we champion diversity in the truest sense of the term. That gives us much more experience in handling all these issues and growing our institutions, growing our discipline, to say. So this is a very famous paper from McGeary, who was at the time the chairperson, the president of the American Astronomical Society. So she's an astrophysicist, very famous astrophysicist at Yale University now, and she wrote this volume, Raising the Bar in Physics Education. And there she brought out these diversity issues, that we have 50% of the population as women. And women are a minority in physics. We don't have women in our labs, in our classrooms, in our research talks, in our discipline. And also so in the American context, physics is dominated by white men, if I may use that term. It has been historically dominated by Caucasian men. And what fraction of the population does Caucasian men belong to? Very small fraction. So this was Meg's point, that excluding from our laboratories and classrooms more than 70-80% of the population, roughly half being women, a quarter being minorities, racial minority or other kinds of minorities. In India, we have minorities, religious minorities, other minorities. So the warning message was, we are limiting our talent pool. go to a particular sect of the society. Talent. How qualified are we? How smart are we? How good are we solving challenging problems? That is a random distribution. So, whereas all these things are social attributes, race, color, religion, whatever, these are all man-made attributes. They are not related to how smart we are, how capable we are, what kinds of different talents we nurture. For example, I am a terrible sports person. I cannot even hit a ball, but I am able to do certain other things. So it's a random thing, and we need all kinds of talents. And if we limit our talent pool, then we are hurting ourselves. We are hurting our discipline. We are hurting in the large scale our societies to solve important and interesting problems. So, if you want to, this was Meg's point in the paper, that if you want to retain the best talent in physics, make the field, make the discipline more diverse, and include talents from all spheres of society. So it's not just even justice. We are not here talking even about social justice. We are talking about excellence. Even in excellence, it's not like, these are impoverished fractions of the society, you have to provide them. That's equity and justice. The other is excellence. So you can see in both sides of the spectrum how important it is to champion diversity. And that's why being inclusive is also important, because as we know that people feel differently, people have different kinds of culture. So I suppose I bring people to my discipline and then I expect all of them to behave in my way. That will not work. That will create these conflicts, and we cannot extract the best out of this diverse group. So we have to know, we have to be inclusive. We have to be sensitive about the differences in people, and the differences in talent, and the differences in ways they think. That's great. So here are the two examples. Look at the paper from LHC. This is one of the biggest discovery, Nobel Prize, 5,000 plus people, 5 continents, 20 plus nations. Just see the amount of talent required to solve this outstanding problem. Okay? So you think how important it is to manage people and to bring in diverse talents. Another example, this is from the Liger Group paper, I think. Yeah, this is the gravitational wave paper, 1,500 plus authors. So first 6-7 pages are just author names. They come from different cultures, different societies. So we must know how to manage them and how to extract talents from them. Now, as I said, that society is evolving, technology is evolving, science is progressing, new challenges, complex problems require diverse skill sets and interests, add the dimension of efficiency in solving social problems, in case of physics, solving exciting physics problems, like the examples I showed. So now the question is, what Professor Gupta said, that why it is difficult. It's a good thing to think about, but why implementing it is difficult? Same reason that even when we bring people, we are not making the atmosphere very welcoming for them. And so that's where comes the question. I said that it is easy to get along with people and talk to them who are like you. But then who are like us? Who am I? Who do I connect with? Who are like me? Are they women? Are they physicists? Are they people who come from Murshidabad district? Are they Bengalis? I have multiple identities. How do I assess who is like me? So that's a very vague notion, because we have multiple identities, and however vague this notion is, we see that for different groups. So people whom we feel, and this is a sociological question, that people whom we feel are different from us, we're scared to welcome them, to mingle with them, to get them into our daily lives. There's a kind of barrier that, oh, that's different. They are different. Men are different. Women are different. Oh, girls do this. We cannot bring them to our certain parties. So these are the notions that generally develop when we are coming into societies. But there lies the problem. So I would just differentiate between two kinds of biases that people have when they are mingling with so-called the different group. One is conscious bias, Another is unconscious bias. I mean, we're not discriminating anybody, but unconsciously, by the fact that we are growing up in a society, there are certain biases that are inbuilt in us. We're not even aware of such biases, but we have them. So, Professor Chinnappa and Professor Das Sharma, they're going to talk about explicit harassment, which is sexual harassment that women face in workplace. So I just will talk a little bit. So this is physical abuse, harassment. I'm going to talk a little bit more about unconscious bias, because this is the bias that is very hard even to put on paper. When you have sexual harassment, you have an ICC who can probably take care of that. And not even that is also very difficult, because to prove sexual harassment is not always very easy. I'm sure there will be discussions about that. But unconscious bias is something that this different group, for example, I'm going to give you about women, frequently face in workplace. So what is that? So this comes, unconscious bias typically comes from social stereotypes about certain groups of people. Punjabis are like that, women are like that, Bengalis are like that. These stereotypes that we casually discuss or casually think sometimes are so inbuilt into our system that, I'm just, don't take it otherwise. I have heard people saying, that person is from the Marwari group and they are doing physics. Marwaris are always into business. So this kind of stereotyping, that you are associating a particular social group with somebody doing business and Bengalis probably doing academics, these kinds of things I frequently hear among my closest circle, among the most liberal people I think of. They're most liberal, they are like great people, great intellectual people, but they casually make these kinds of comments. I'll give an example. I should not quote her, but our Vice Chancellor, she comes from the Marwari community. She once told me that when she came to the workplace, she joined as a young faculty. She was told, you grew up in Borobajar. There people study this much. You have done a PhD, you have become a scientist. Borobajar parashona kore lokjon. So you see, this is coming from her own colleagues when she's a young faculty in the department. It's not about even being a woman. So I'm saying that we have these kinds of unconscious bias, and sometimes we are not sure that how such kinds of comments and such behavior can be so unwelcoming for the minority person who is coming to my group. So let's look at the women's aspects. Women's perceived social role as caregivers. Okay, they take care of babies, they take care of households, so family commitment, careers that require less competitiveness. I have heard that, girls study Bengali because in Bengali the careers are not so demanding. If you have to study physics, it's a very demanding career. So let's send women to study Bangla. Such kinds of things are quite common. I'm sure some of you have also heard such kinds of things. So careers of caregiving. Women are good at being nurses. Women are good at being primary school teachers. So it's all coming from the gender stereotyping of what social roles we attribute with some gender, in this case gender. Okay? So men opt for powerful positions, more prestige, more stature. And women, we expect that, you are in a meeting. So you are in a meeting and then men are loudly speaking. Women's voices are typically softer than men. Their voices are getting, people are just not taking care, listening to what this person is, speaking in a low voice. This is all, because we are not even conscious that this person is trying to say something. She cannot speak on top of the voices of the loud men in the room. And I'm not even aware that she might be feeling unwelcome. So these are the unconscious bias. And this can only go by awareness programs of this kind. So thanks to SNBOS for having this, and all the students, this is really encouraging to see. So they are unsuitable for leadership roles. Women are weak, they can't take decisions. Again, some social stereotyping. And we will see not just in physics, everywhere. So these are some statistics I got from UN, from the United Nations. So women in executive government positions. As of 1st September 2021, there are 26 women serving as heads of state and government in 24 countries. And the current rate, gender equality in the highest positions of power will not be reached for another 130 years. So we have to wait another 130 years to have gender equality in terms of political executive heads, in this case like prime ministers and presidents and all that. So only 20% of government ministers were women, with only 14 countries having achieved 50% or more women in cabinet. That's still good, but at least there are 14 countries which have 50% or more women. With an annual increase of just 0.52 percentage points, gender parity in ministerial positions will not be achieved before 2077. I'll be long dead by that time. So you can imagine that I used to think that, gender disparity used to stay in my grandmother's generation. When I was young, when I was a college going student, I used to think, no, I am being treated very fairly. My friends never biased against me. My parents were being treated. I never had this feeling that I was a girl, I was a woman, and I'm being denied of these things. I don't think this exists in the 1990s, in the 2000s. It doesn't exist. It used to exist with my grandmas. And then after staying in the profession and looking at not only this the world, even in my profession, I understood that how much it exists, and majority of it is because of this social stereotypes. We don't have criminals all around, who are always trying to harass women or do sexual harassment. But this unconscious bias is something that is just unbelievably harmful to the notion of getting equality and equal treatment. So this is very important. This is related to unconscious bias. The 5 most commonly held portfolios by women ministers are family, children, youth, elderly, disabled. Just imagine, not in finance. We have a finance minister who is a woman, that's good. Social affairs, environment. So you see, again, that stereotype plays role, that women are good at family stuff, at children's stuff, so they should be given those ministries. And the same happens when you look at administrative committees in institutions. Women are in soft committees, some public outreach committee and all those. Let's put a woman faculty there. These kinds of things are rampant in our institutions. So this is the Nobel Prize gender gap. You can see that this is physics, the worst one, 212 men and 4 women so far. This is up to 2020. Well, 2021 we don't have a woman, so the statistics for physics says the same. This is the Nobel gender gap. This is an older data, but this is the fellowship of the National Academy of Sciences. So this was 5-6 years old data. This has probably changed a little bit. Professor Shavesh Gupta can tell us, but what is encouraging is that we now see a lot of drive from people in the academy. I mean, the president of the academy, right? So we got all these academies are actually thinking about this stuff. The government is thinking that, why do you have so less women fellows? Why is the percentage of fellows so less in the academies? I'm showing this data is because the academies are expected to acknowledge the best of scientists in the country, and we are seeing that their acknowledgement of women being very good scientists or accomplished scientists is very low. So why is this happening? Is it just because of the number of women, or are there these unconscious biases, taking into action? So this is one example. It's one of my favorite examples about bias, unconscious bias, is that this is an example from the field of computer science. So here, what you see is that, I'm not sure if this is visible well, so this is from the 1970s to the 2000s. This is a fraction of women who are in computer science, this red line. This is physical science, life science, etc. This is the computer science thing. I think, yes, that's the computer science thing. And initially that is low, but you can see that in the 80s, it actually exceeded 60%. So a large number of women are in computer science. The NASA space program actually was successful because of these computer scientist programmers, women. A lot of them were women, and they were called key punch girls. You can see this proves amount of little bit disrespect that is there. So when fruits of the labor of the key punch girls, then you see that there is sudden drop. So that's the surprise, that this is a field where there were a lot of women initially dominating the field. Why is this drop? And then came this surprise that computer science after the 80s got more prestigious. There were more prestige, more money, more power in the discipline. Again, and when there is more competitiveness, more power, more prestige, it becomes a men's field. So now women are. So now So this is the stereotyping. There's something that women are very good at and have proven record that they are very good at it. Now feels that we cannot be in the field of computer science because we are not so good. It's a very competitive field. You have to be really, really smart to be into computer science. So this is a classic example of unconscious bias, unconscious or whatever bias, social stereotyping. So this is another very unfortunate example from the 2020 laureate Reinhard Genzel. So Reinhard Genzel and Andrea Ghez both got the Nobel Prize for discovering, for making this discovery, actually led by these two people. Their groups did this phenomenal observation where we learned that there's a supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. So Reinhard Genzel, one of the winners of 2020 Nobel Prize in Physics, said that the reason Andrea Ghez shared in the prize, and they both won the prize, he said that many of you have read probably his statements, because she's a woman. So the question is, now we have all this notion in the world that we have to champion equity, we have to give opportunities to women. So the Nobel Prize, when somebody after doing exceptional work wins the Nobel Prize, our fellow laureate makes this derogatory comment that, we wouldn't have gotten the prize because they had to give it to Andrea because Andrea was a woman, not because she did exceptional work. And so if they had to give it to Andrea, I was also the leader of the other team that did the discovery, they also gave it to me. Can you believe this? That a Nobel laureate, somebody of the highest stature in our discipline, publicly makes such kinds of statements. So you can no law in the world can be effective in eradicating such kinds of events. Only awareness and our good intent and will can. So this is another thing that Professor Gupta also said. The denial of gender bias or bias of any kind. I have seen a lot of physicists, very smart physicists. No, there is no gender bias in physics. They deny. So the first step that any awareness campaign should address is that accept that there is a bias. Accept it. And I showed several examples. I'm sure all of you are very smart people who can go and look at a lot of studies and data in the internet, stereotyping and socialization. Marginalizing the issue. So this is what Professor Sardas said. That, it's a women's issue, there are less women in the PhD program, or there are no women faculty. This is a women's issue. The women need to worry about it. That's what the problem. No, it's not the women who need to worry about it. It's the community who need to worry about it. It's a social problem. It's not a women's problem. It's not a Marwaris problem. It's not a religious minority problem. It's a social problem. We all need to worry about it because we want to do justice and because we want to extract excellence. Let's do it in our field, in physics, for example. So now these were all probably depressing words, road forward, constant awareness at all levels, like the ones we are doing, or SNB and CBSSC. Implementing rules doesn't help unless we have increased awareness. So one common thing I always tell that use gender neutral, gender inclusive terms. So mankind, humankind, policeman, police officer. So I have not Miss or Mrs. MS, brotherhood, kinship. So let's see, chairman, chairperson. Okay. So you see the usage of words should be gender neutral. That itself inculcates a culture of gender neutrality gender awareness, that we don't have this notion of gender when we use our vocabulary. Okay? Use they, not he. I have seen, the pronoun, the natural pronoun is he. Sometimes it's being said he or she. That's better. But now we have they. You always say they did it. Even for single person, also use they. Use gender neutral pronouns, not he. If you read older books of the 80s, physics books, you read. So my colleague, one of my colleagues, he teaches classical mechanics. He said, he's a man. He said that I have difficulty reading Klepner Kolenko, because all the references are always in male pronoun, he, and that just keeps me disturbed, because I'm teaching women, I'm reading the book, I feel bad. So use gender. This is a very easy thing to do in our everyday life, is to use gender neutral words, terms. Now these are some of the more professional societies who are engaged into these kinds of awareness programs, talking to the government, giving initiatives, taking roles. So one is, I would like to highlight Gender in Physics Working Group. I'll tell you why this is quite important. So this is, so I see Professor Dashgupta and Professor Lairi was also a member of this meeting. This was the first Women in Physics meeting that was held in India in 2019 in Hyderabad. So this is actually the picture that I'm showing is from the APS coverage of the meeting. So APS newsletter, and these are all colleagues very devoted into the cause of equity, gender equity in physics. This is, you can see Professor Sharad here. So this is actually something called the International Conference on Women in Physics, which happens every 3 years. So the last one was in 2021, which was online in Australia. And this is the country poster on what we achieved as in India, in the physics community, to make a more gender neutral discipline. This is the country poster that was given by the GI, so the IPA Gender Working Group, the Indian Physics Association Gender Working Group. I'm not telling the details, but you can look up. All of these are in the website. Just Gender in Physics Working Group. If you type, you're going to find all this data and everything. Now, I just particularly put this picture, and you can recognize one of them here. So this is Professor G.C. Anupama. She's the first woman president of the Astronomical Society of India. We have recently, this was I think 2 years back or last year, and this is this year, we recently had 2 women directors in our physics and astronomy institutions, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank SNB NCBS and congratulate SNB NCBS for having their first woman director, and we expect a lot from them. This is a very proud moment. People wouldn't even understand how proud a woman for it. This probably will be appreciated by our senior women colleagues, for whom what a journey it could be that a woman has now become the director of an institution. When women first started coming into the discipline and getting like rampantly harassed, even people commenting on their dress. A woman colleague told me that she was being told as a young postdoc that, oh, why do you wear all these bell-bottom pants all the time? You can wear a salwar kameez. This seems like something from a different century, but this is reality. This used to happen in our own institutions, and now we have women directors in this institution. So that's a long way we have come across, but of course there are a lot more to improve. And this is the Hyderabad chapter for gender equity in physics. This came from the conference that I was talking about in 2019. You should all go if you are interested. I'm sure you are, because you came for the program, and see some of the guiding principles. And what all these charters, all these documents, all these conferences, all these voices ask for is equality, not special preference. So everything, gender must not be there anywhere in our discipline, in our profession, and of course not in our sphere of life. Okay? So get rid of gender. Gender doesn't matter. We are physicists, not women physicists, male physicists, etc., etc. So now I just in my talk, and we have two other exciting talks to come, which will be more explicitly on the conscious bias or harassment, physical abuse, and safety issues that women have to face. So since this is a gender conference, I have a quote from Harvey Milk, who you know, some of you know that is a famous gay rights activist. I know that you cannot live on hope alone, but without it, life is not worth living. And you gonna give him hope. So that's a fantastic quote, and one of my favorites from Harvey Milk. And this is from Jocelyn Bell Burdell. She told this in the ICWIP 2017 conference, which was held at University of Birmingham. So I was one of the representative of the country team. And she said that whenever we talk about these gender issues in physics, there is always, we have to make schemes for women. Their career break schemes, all these schemes, we have to encourage women, we have to mentor them so that they gain confidence. I think that's correct to some degree. But the more important thing is, the women are quite capable of taking leadership roles. We have an excellent person sitting in front of us. They are very capable of writing the best of research papers. They are very capable of being excellent graduate students. They are capable of all of this. It's not the problem of the woman. And so Jocelyn Bell Burnell, you probably know her story about the pulsar. We don't need to fix the women. We need to fix the system. So I'll stop here, and thank you very much for your attention. I guess we discuss the questions we have at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your very, very informative lecture. Now I would like to invite online Dr. A.P. Chengappa, Assistant Professor Law, West Bengal National University of the Medical Sciences, for his talk. He will be giving his talk online.
Okay, thank you, madam. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Hope I am audible.
Yes, sure.
Abhijit, can you tell me that he is audible, but the volume is very low?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Abhijit, you have to respond to him. Otherwise we won't
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Very good afternoon to the one and all present here. Respected Professor Madam Tanusri, the Director, Dr. Nibedita, Deputy Registrar, my fellow panelists, students, faculties, and ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, it gives me immense pleasure to share my thoughts on this, the particular the topic, creating awareness with respect to the sexual harassment law at workplace. This is the most important the topic we come across in the year 2013. The Parliament of India came out with a very landmark legislation in order to wipe out sexual harassment at workplace. So I will be speaking on sexual harassment, protection against sexual harassment at the workplace, a constitutional perspective. If you look at genesis of this sexual harassment law, we can trace from the Constitution of India. If you look at Indian Constitution, 1950, Indian Constitution came into force. The preamble of the Indian Constitution, which deals about dignity of all the human being. We the people of India, Constitution doesn't make any discrimination between man and women. Dignity of all. Therefore, we come across, we have a couple of the articles in the Indian Constitution. The primarily Article 14 of Indian Constitution. It states that equal protection and equality before the law. What do you mean by equal protection? Equal protection envisages all the men and women are equal under the protection of the law. It is equality before the law and equal protection of the law. Although, mechanically speaking, men and women are not equal. But law treats both men and women are equal in terms of the privilege, the protection, benefit. There is no discrimination at all. Therefore, at the time when the constitution of the country, formulated, we kept this Article 14. Then, if you look at the further, we have one more important the article of Indian Constitution, Article 15. Article 15 of the Constitution, which prohibits discrimination on the ground of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth. That means there should not be any discrimination between men and women. Any form of discrimination considered to be unconstitutional. It violates fundamental rights of the people of the country. If women feels that here is a particular law which discriminates, which doesn't treat equally, then she can approach the court of law in order to challenge those particular laws. Constitution says that like should be treated alike, unlike should be treated unlike. Therefore, if you look at Indian tradition, culture, it varies from this place to place, state to state. We don't, there are situations we come across, patriotism are prevailed in the Indian, the culture and values. In order to overcome those, the problems, the framers of the Constitution provided special protection under Article 15 and 16. Article 15 says that some special protection can be given to women and children in order to empower women. Similarly, Article 16 also deals about some positive discrimination to women in terms of employment, in terms of the election process, giving reservation to women in order to empower women in par with men. This special protection has been provided under the Constitution in order to see that there should be more the participation of the women. Madam was pointing out, with regard to women participations are very, very, very less. The past, 50 to 70 years. Now things are changing. Ratio of women employee at workplace are very, very less. Even in the governance level also. Therefore, this special protection provided to women. Thereby, Parliament or state legislature or government, for that matter, can give some special measure in order to improve the condition of women. Then we have Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause G. This article, all the citizens shall have right to practice any profession, carry on any occupation, trade, or business. That means women also equally permitted to conduct business, law conduct business, women can participate in the public life, women can apply for any public post. There should not be any restrictions. We have seen couple of the the state says that women should not work beyond 6 p.m. Women should not work in restaurant. Recently, we have seen those laws were challenged before the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said that women are par with men. If men is allowed to work, why not women? Therefore, the Supreme Court applies Article 14, right to equality. Thereby, it is the responsibility of the state to provide security to women. Then Article 21 of Indian Constitution, which deals about life and liberty of the people. It means no person shall be deprived of his life and liberty. In other words, everybody can live in this country. No state can deprive life and liberty unnecessarily. Life and liberty includes right to live together, right to marry, right not to marry, right to cohabitation, right to live together. All those things, rights we come across. Personal liberty. You might have seen, the way in which the Supreme Court and High Court expanding this right to life. Right to life, in order to lead the life in a democratic country like India, you need liberty. So state cannot curtail those liberty. The liberty. Therefore, over a period of time, we come across the Supreme Court of India expanding the personal liberty of every individual, including women, right to privacy. See, in India, the concept of the right to privacy was not there. So today, we come across the Supreme Court recognized the right to privacy, so that state cannot unnecessarily tap telephone conversation. State cannot interfere with regard to the marital life, sexual life, and the issues where autonomy have been given to women or men, as the case may be. Least interference with regard to the personal life. If tomorrow, the state direct people to disclose their medical history in public, that means it will be affecting the personal liberty, which is not the allowed. Before going to right against sexual harassment, I will be speaking very broader aspect in order to understand how the constitution is robust in this country. See, when it comes to the women, by and large, laws are not equal, especially personal laws is concerned. If you look at property, by and large, patriarchal system we come across. Property will devolve to the son, not to the daughter. Then we come across the court had to come up with a decision. The daughter's right over the ancestral property, paving way for women empowerment. Secondly, maintenance. If you look at maintenance, although maintenance with regard to the Hindu women have been formulated by the parliament, whatever the Muslim women, the Supreme Court has to say that even after the divorce, Muslim men have to pay the maintenance. Similarly, we come across recently, few of the cases you might have noticed. Abolition of the triple talaq. Entry of the women to the temple, Sabrimala temple, or other public temple, then we come across, so many developments. You might have noticed adultery. Supreme Court of India, legalized adultery. Why Supreme Court of India said adultery is not a punishable? Because what used to be there, only men can file a FIR against the person who is involved in sexual intercourse with one's wife. Same right have not been given to the wife, and Supreme Court said that this is nothing but violation. Men cannot treat women as a property. Therefore, Supreme Court strike it down. Section 497 of the Indian Penal Code. Similarly, if you look at so many cases, Air India case you might have heard, where upon getting first pregnancy, she will lose her the hair hostess the job, where Supreme Court said that it is unconstitutional. Similarly, regarding the mother as a natural guardian of the child. Law used to be only men. Man is the natural guardian of the child. The Supreme Court said that it is unconstitutional. Mother one who nurture, protect the baby, and she should be a natural guardian of the child up to 5 years. Thereby we come across so many cases where the Supreme Court of India provided empowered the women, be it maintenance, marriage, the personal matters, right to terminate pregnancy. All those cases women will have the say. This is in generally the Constitution of India recognizes women as an important stake in the governance of the country. No parliament, no state legislature, no government can undermine the rights of the women. Our constitution is considered as a transformative constitution. The laws are very robust. If you look at Sabarimala case, who went to the Supreme Court? It is women only. If you look at Sani Mata temple, who went to Supreme Court? It is women only for enforcement of their right. Therefore, today, in the great democratic country like India, laws are changing, mindset of the judges also changing, interpretations also changing, to see that India become an inclusive society. Now I am going to talk about sexual harassment. See, Sexual Harassment Act workplace. Why this law is first of all was enacted? What made Parliament of India to come up with sexual harassment law at workplace? We have an Indian Penal Code. If you look at Indian Penal Code, so many the provisions we come across where FIR can be registered against men. For instance, showing of obscenity under Section 292, Section 354, assault, use of criminal force against women intended to outrage the modesty of women. Then we have the violence against women, Section 497, cruelty against women, any intimidation, assault against the women. And recently the Supreme Court, government also came out with stringent the amendment with regard to criminal laws. 2013, after Nirbhaya's case, we have a stringent provisions. If any person or definition of the rape has been very broadened. Earlier penetration used to be the main criteria. Now definition of the rape also has been expanded to see that no person can escape from the purview of criminal law. Now, despite of this all IPC, why the government of India, Parliament of India enacted Sexual Harassment, the act at workplace? The primary reason, in order to see that there should be conducive atmosphere. Most of the countries, not only in India, even Australia, USA, Canada, sexual assault will be perpetrated against the women employee. Thereby, entire atmosphere gets, despoiled, where she is not able to work in a conducive atmosphere. Therefore, this law comes to the rescue of victim of sexual harassment. See, what is sexual harassment? All those things clearly mentioned under the Sexual Harassment Act. It's a very simple, straightforward, the laws. There are huge responsibility on the part of the institution. Your director, madam, was telling, conducting awareness program, the building capacity program, and also there is a mandate on the institution to see that there is a responsibility of the employer to see that there should be a conducive atmosphere, zero tolerance against sexual harassment. Even if you look at UGC policy also, every institution has to come up with sexual harassment the policy in order to implement the Sexual Harassment Act according to its letter and spirit. Therefore, today it's been nearly 8 years. We need to really see that how far we have implemented this law. Are we really providing a conducive atmosphere? How we are dealing these cases? Because it's all very sensitive cases. Therefore, we have kept away from the police. Yes, people can go and file FIR in police station. That is differently. But they may not be expert people to deal those cases. Therefore, Sexual Harassment Committee at university level consists of 3 to 4 members. They will look into the complainant, They are the facilitator to the complainant. They have to help to the complainant, victim. And it's an entire proceeding have to be followed. It's not like civil court, not like a police station. This is informal proceeding to see that person who is indulged in such activity should be brought to the book. And this committee has lot of power. Committee can if a committee feels that because it is happening in the department, university, industry, committee can suspend the person pending inquiry so that he will not interfere with regard to the inquiry. This ICC, Internal Complaint Committee, has a recommendatory power. It will recommend to the employer to take a necessary action against the person who is involved in the sexual harassment the cases. This law is something considered to be very, very pragmatic law. In order, purpose is to see that there should not be any sexual harassment at workplace. See, why I referring Constitution of India. I think you are aware about this law from since 2013. If you trace the genesis of the law, this law primarily was enacted because of the Supreme Court decision, Visakha versus State of Rajasthan. a writ petition filed before the Supreme Court by NGO called Visaka. For what? Praying for a particular directives. Accordingly, the Supreme Court of India defined the sexual harassment. See, look at it. This decision was, was delivered way back 1997. What this Parliament of India doing? Nothing. Look at the mentality of the Indian Parliament. Why so long they have to, wait until 2013? And, the credit will go to the Supreme Court of India. Thereby, after the Supreme Court decision, Supreme Court said that until government comes out with a law, this directives will be considered as a law of the land. But it was not so popular because awareness was not there. Then finally we come across 2013. Law was white and black letter law was enacted. The purpose is to see that there should not be any the sexual harassment. If you look at the title of this law, see, sexual harassment of women at workplace, prevention, prohibition, and redressal. Three important words we come across. Prevention, by whom? Employer, of the institution. So much mandate, constitutional mandate imposed on the employer of the industry, institution, university. Then prohibition. The institution need to take a step, proactive step, to prohibit all those the sexual harassment, the activity at the workplace. And finally, redressal. Redressal means resolving these issues, instituting an inquiry by the internal committee. There is a huge responsibility on the internal committee to see that particular person who has involved in perpetrating sexual harassment should be brought to under the law. Very powerful authority. It is an independent authority. No person, no employer can interfere with regard to the working of this committee. If a person is found guilty, the employer has to have to accept the recommendation of the ICC, unless there is some interference, unless there is a bias. Therefore, speaking from the constitutional the perspective, the government of India in the year 2013 given effect to international convention, popularly called as CEDA, Convention Against All Form of Discrimination Against Women. This was the international convention where government of India was party to that, but they did not do anything. After signing everything, they did not do anything. Then finally, Supreme Court had to pull up the government. Here is a treaty you have signed, but you are doing nothing. Therefore, the credit will go to Supreme Court of India. Although there are many provisions we come across with regard to the CEDA, sexual harassment. One of the important issues are marital rape. The government of India said that we can't accept marital rape, whereas CEDA convention says that marital rape also have to be incorporated. although then secondly we come across POSCO, prevention of the sexual harassment of the children. Very, very, stringent provisions we come across. No bail, and person will be, be arrested. Why all those things, why we are coming out with, stringent laws post Nirbhaya case? Because, as Director Madam rightly pointed out, it is the duty on the part of the, responsible male member of the society to create such, the atmosphere, respect, dignity, respect, privacy. Now time has, has come. No, law will never, no person need to fear about this law. Only person who need to fear those who are indulging these practices. So gone are the days, nothing used to be there. Women used to tolerate because there is no forum. Who will go to police station? Who will go to civil court? Sorry, criminal court? No one. Therefore, now, informal. If any employee or, are, subject of sexual harassment, just they have to write a complaint. Even if they are unable to write a complaint, it is the duty on the part of the ICC member to help the victim. So therefore, the law has been changed. And another debate we come across, whether this law is only one-sided, whatever if male is suffering from sexual harassment. Yes, if you look at some of the institutions, including NUJs, we have come out with a policy. We made gender neutral. Even male member also, can file a complaint. But by and large, sexual harassment happens against the female. Therefore, this law considered as a special law. If you look at POSCO, prevention of the sexual harassment of the children, it has, gender neutral. Both, the child, male, both boy and girl can file a complaint. Anyway, I think this law going to help immensely for all the victims who are suffering, who are going to suffer with regard to the sexual harassment. The second, there is a apprehension whether people can misuse this law. If there is a law, misuse is part of, the discourse. Yeah, misuse also. Therefore, ICC play a very important role. If a person, found the misusing this law, filing, fake complaint, law will seriously deal the issues. A defamation case can be also filed against the victim. Therefore, I think more and more training program like this will, create proper the awareness. Law is, whatever the laws are there is a need to create more and more awareness so that people can feel comfortable to come forward to file a complaint. Even, there are many of the cases we come across, some of the, the cases what happen, intentionally or unintentionally, a complaint will be filed. Therefore, there is a provisions under the law to have a conciliation. We need to ask before, filing a complaint, formal complaint, there is a provision for conciliation so that, issues can be resolved. Issues can be resolved by the, in the presence of the ICC. a warning can be issued against such the person in the university, in the department. Like that provisions also we come across. Therefore, this particular law, one of the beneficial piece of legislation intending to serve cause of the society, to see that everybody should work in a proper atmosphere. Because the society, if you look at historically, only men used to work, not women. Now country is changing. Therefore, nobody can victimize, nobody can create atmosphere in such a way, interfering the women. Yes, she can take a decision. See, this particular law will allow consensus relationship. Women can choose anyone. Women can have any relationship. Law will never interfere at all, because consensual relationship is allowed, because it is a constitutional right. Therefore, the law only helps those who interference. So therefore, there is no fear of the law is required, because this law helps to the victim. Therefore, it is our responsibility to work as one family at the workplace. If a people has like that mindset, time has come to change their mindset, because these are the cases are very sensitive. You are going to lose your job. What if a particular victim files complaint before police station? Then it's a non-cognizable. The entire the life of the person will be affected. Therefore, I think let me conclude. Constitutionally speaking, this law protects dignity of man as well as dignity of women. The Constitution never discriminates anyone. Therefore, the Parliament of India or Supreme Court of India, they enacted this law primarily in order to improve the status of the women, as well as to provide conducive atmosphere at workplace. Thank you. Thank you for giving this opportunity. I think I'm from law background. I don't know, how far it understood. If you have any query, all those things, I'm open to answer the questions.
Thank you, sir, for enriching us with different IPCs and provisions of law. We will go for the discussion and Q&A session after the talk of Professor Joshi Sharma, the last talk. Thank you, sir. Now we would like to invite Professor Joshi Sharma, who is also the member of the ICC of our center and the professor at Isaac Kolkata.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so shall I share my slides?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon to one and all. It is my great pleasure to come for this awareness program on sexual harassment of women at workplace. And my sincere thanks goes to the director, Dr. Tanushree Saha Dasgupta, for giving me an opportunity to speak about the preventing and the responding to sexual harassment by implementing Harassment Act in higher education and also institutions. Here I just want to say that I am a member of Internal Complaint Committee of your institute, And I thought it will be interesting to talk about like how the ICC functions. So my talk will be mainly covering the functioning of ICC, taking from the genesis. But Professor Suchetana Chatterjee and especially Dr. M.P. Chengappa, just met the previous speaker, covered very well about this act and the of ICC it will be. So I am mainly going to talk about like, what to do, what not to do, what comes under the sexual harassment, and specifically how to address that. And if there is not addressed properly, what are the consequences can happen? Because that's, I think, is the most practical aspect of this ICC to understand. As I served the committee as chairperson of Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, Calcutta for almost 4.5 years, I went through several cases, and that taught me a lot because, none of us are lawyer or none of us knew about it too much about that functioning before we took the responsibility. So I think same thing for your institute also. And as it is an awareness program, we need to know like what we should pay attention and how to prevent. I think the most important part of this ICC is to make aware the people aware of that, so that there is a prevention, prohibition, and then if needed, there will be redressal. So that's what I want to say, that the sexual harassment of women at workplace, which is called POSH, like Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act, which just my previous speaker talked about it, came in 2013, and the director also mentioned about it, that before that it was termed as that Committee Against Sexual Harassment, that was CASH Committee, but now the new name is Internal Complaint Committee. And this committee has been constituted by the institute, but it is a very high power committee, as just discussed by my previous speaker, that this committee holds lots of responsibility. But we all have to remember that this committee is a recommending committee. It is not a decision-making committee. So we need to be very careful about taking investigating the cases and to make a recommendation to the institute higher authority who will take the final decision. So the committee is not a decision-making committee. Committee is recommending body. Because most of the cases, it was asked by several people that it cannot be possible because other people were not aware that how to take a decision. Say the director is the leader of the institute. He is responsible, and some places registrar is responsible, some places company director is responsible. But they have to take a decision based on the recommendation ICC is providing. So that's what I want to make it clear from the beginning, that it is a recommending body. It is not a decision-making committee. So there should not be any confusion that, he or she gave a unnecessary recommendation, because there are lots of investigation. And I think the investigation part is the most critical part. And that's what I want to cover, the steps what we generally follow, and that I learned, tell you the truth, when I took the responsibility, I was not aware of that. So I also made myself aware of that by reading the Gazette, which I will show you here now. So the 2013, when it came, the sexual harassment of women at workplace, it is a legislative in India that seeks to protect women from sexual harassment at their workplace, and not only workplace, in the surrounding also, which I will come in the next slide. The Act will ensure that women are protected against sexual harassment at all workplaces. Either it will be in the public or in the private. And this will contribute to realization of their rights to gender equality, life and liberty, and equality in working conditions everywhere. What Dr. Suchetana Chatterjee covered in detail, so I'm not going to talk much about it, but we need to know what are the rights. Everybody has it, and there should be right to gender equality. And the sense of security is very important, because women should not be not secured at workplace, because it will affect the woman's performance. So we need to increase the security at the workplace, which will improve women's participation in work, resulting in their economic empowerment and inclusive growth. And this act came into force from 9th December 2013, which was mentioned earlier also. This statute suppressed the Vishaka guideline for prevention of sexual harassment introduced by the Supreme Court of India. So when before 2013, from 2010, Vishaka guideline was the guideline and we used to follow that. But from 2013, it is no more guideline, it is the act. And you can see in the left side that this is mentioned very clearly that this is the Gazette of India and it is like Ministry of Law and Justice. It came into an act here. And then, so first of all, like institute like us, and I'm not very much aware of the companies, but I attended several talks. Most of the time, the question comes, what is sexual harassment? Which activities can come under sexual harassment? And what we do, we orient our students towards this because, in most of the cases, we realize that it starts with some mutual understanding, mutual likings. Then when there is a conflict, it goes to sexual harassment, which is difficult to solve the cases because you cannot blame anybody just like, the case has come. So we have to be very, very careful about categorizing the sexual harassment. And I think today there is no confusion because it is written very clearly in the Gazette and we should follow that. Like unnecessary physical contact and advances. I think we all have to be aware because we are teachers. When we teach in the class, we have to maintain a distance. It is not that I'm maintaining like 20 feet distances. No, but we need to know what is called physical contact. And a demand or request of sexual favors or direct demand in exchange of some recommendation or like, extra class hours, we cannot do that. Making sexually colored remarks or stories. Jokes telling which are likely to cause awkwardness or embarrassment. Some people likes to make jokes, tell stories, but there are some reserved people, they may not like it. So we have to see that it is not making them embarrassed. So that also comes under sexual harassment. Similarly, display of pornography, other offensive or derogatory emails, pictures, cartoons, pamphlets, or any sayings in WhatsApp, it is not accepted at all. Any other uninvited physical, verbal, or non-verbal conduct of a sexual nature. Yeah, in the first talk, Professor Suchetana Chatterjee was mentioning that, previously people used to make a comment like, even we cannot say somebody stupid because that will embarrass them. But whether that is a sexual harassment, that's what we have to understand. That we have to hold our tongue and we have to know what is parliament, the language you have to use, that should be polished and no unparliamentary word we can use. That's very important to know today. And then there are also some other things which comes under sexual harassment, which is listed below like eye teasing or eve teasing, without knowing somebody may do it, like, they are not understanding that other people are bothered. Offensive remarks, suggestive remarks and taunts, gender biased like insults or sexist remarks, unwelcome sexual overtone in any manner, such as over telephone or email or WhatsApp, like that. Touching or any way not to go too close to anyone so that there is a physical distance. Forcible physical touch or molestation, of course, comes under sexual harassment. And same with physical confinement against one's will and any other act likely to violate any privacy. So here the question is, most of the cases, I don't know, when we face it with a large number of students, when they first come, they do not know what to do, what not to do with their fellow students, with their classmates. So they sometimes start something with a very joking mode or very liking mode, but then slowly it irritates or bothers others. And it is not only bothering to a certain people, if it is in a group and he or she is bothering someone, that can also cause problem. That's what we have to be very, very careful, and that our behavior in the workplace need to be controlled. And this act necessarily do not only have to occur within the institutes or within your premises of your workplace. It can be a social event organized by the employer during work-related travels at a client or customer's premises. Like, lots of vendors comes, and sometimes there can be a discussion which goes to deep, and then it causes problem. And as well as in a training event, business lunches or dinners, promotional campaignings, or public relation event with clients, customers, or prospective partners. Similarly, during the course of work-related phone conversation or communication via electronic media, we have to be very careful what we are saying. There should not be any abusive words, or there should not be any intention, or unintentionally also, we should not use any unparliamentary words. So that we can avoid if we know what are our rights. So here we always say, know your rights. So in ISER Kolkata, we always say sexual harassment is illegal. ISER Kolkata prohibits sexual harassment. I just gave an example of ISER Kolkata, but it is not only for ISER Kolkata, it is for every institute that prohibits sexual harassment. But for presentation, I thought I put ISER Kolkata because I have no rights to say that, prohibit sexual harassment, because I'm absolutely sure each institute, as today I'm giving a talk in awareness program, has a slogan that prohibits sexual harassment. Then we have to speak up and tell the person to stop. Like, if I know my rights, if somebody is doing something which is not, I'm not comfortable, or anyone is not comfortable, they can say that stop. Because that is the first thing, because people do not know how complicated the functioning of ICC. Any case, if it is serious, it can go more than a year, it can go more than 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And tell you the truth, I really have suffered for that, so I don't know like how to explain. But it is a very complicated case. It is not that just somebody complain, we take the complaint, we punish the person. No. So first thing is to tell the person to stop it, because I have every right to say, don't do that. I'm not like you. But if someone goes more than that, and I feel like I cannot speak up, I can ask my friend, I can ask their help to bring into the notice of the institute. There are tiers. I think each institute, we have head of the section, head of the departments, then there is committees, then there are different deans, then there are directors. So there is always scope to bring it to the notice. And also you can bring it to the ICC, but you have to be careful, because the moment you touch the ICC, then it is a complicated process. So if you want to bring it, you can bring it, but ICC has to take a call whether that is an ICC case or it is just, can be stopped by preventing. So one thing I repeatedly tell every committee, because I know that after working with that, the best thing is to prohibit. So it should not go beyond the control. And because we are not lawyers, we are scientists, we are teachers. We think like our responsibility to teach, but teaching doesn't mean only classroom teaching. This is also part of our teaching. So if each of us take the responsibility beyond our shoulder and explain to each, like students, friends, whenever we come in contact, that don't do that, it will go beyond that, it will be a complicated case. And keep records, because it may be first time we can avoid, second time we can give warning, third time we can give warning, but fourth time no. That means it is going to be serious, and we are not helping that person to keeping it within ourselves, because we are forcing him to do repeatedly, because once he escaped, he thought I can escape second time, third time. No, from the beginning it has to be prevented. And if you are not comfortable, or I'm not comfortable to talk in front of the people in the committee, there should be a way to write. So each ICC should have a separate email, and there should be a committee to whom they can access. And I will come to the functioning of the committee. So before coming to the committee, we have to see, and committee also should make sure that no one is ignoring any complaint. Ignoring sexual harassment is a crime, and it does not make it go away. Rather than it increases, and then the harasser may misinterpret a lack of response as approval of the behavior. and they can continue doing it, which will be a burden to the any workplace. And we should not delay in action, increasing the probability that unwanted behavior will continue or escalate. And do not hesitate to ask for help. Now, this is like a formula. It is not that I'm just reading the slides. It is the bulleted points. After working with 4 years, we always give that orientation to the students that these are the things you have to keep it in your mind, just like a Bible. The way you read your textbook, you have to think it in your mind that what to do, what not to do. So then they have to remember that sexual harassment is a criminal offense, so they can stop not doing it. They can stop other people's activities, and they can bring a serenity in the institute or workplace. So there is a zero tolerance for sexual harassment. And as per the Supreme Court of India's directive, it is mandatory to ensure safety women at workplace. But here, I always say safety women at workplace is related to the safety of the men at workplace, because woman-men relationship can go to extreme, but sometimes the women also can bother men. But do they have a grievance cell? No. But they can think about it to stopping it or preventing it. So any women-men relationship should be a cordial in the workplace. Even their husband-wife, even their girlfriend-boyfriend, even they are thinking about making a relationship. No, not in the workplace. And outside the workplace, you have to remember, you are under the premises of any institute. So if you do something which comes out to or falls into the category of sexual harassment, then it can go to the extreme. So sometimes people ask me a question like, okay, it happened at home. Of course it happened at home, but where did you meet that person? He or she is related to ICE of Calcutta. So you have to understand that you are not outside the premises of the institute. So that's what it is very important to know. And also sometimes we don't know, like we are at workplace. Maybe I am very close with someone, and later I realize that he is harassing me. So I couldn't able to stop. Where I will lodge a complaint. So lodge a complaint is very, very difficult task, I have realized. Because people think what other people will think, what committee will think. But no one, if they think they are victim, they are not stopping to make a complaint. And it is not a complaint. It is a narrating what is happening with him or her, and explain very clearly, like, what was her intention, because in most of the cases I have realized that most of the case comes with that, like there is a misunderstanding. So misunderstanding should not go to the committee, because that is not under the purview of the committee. Or say there is a problem with the space related issues. That should not go to ICC. There may be a one male faculty versus one female faculty, one male student versus one female student, but no, that should go to disciplinary committee. So the moment it should come to the ICC should investigate thoroughly and then decide whether it is a purview of ICC. So most of the time it happens, in any cases, people think, okay, I complained in ICC. Why ICC is not acting? No, ICC acting. But it is not under the purview of ICC. So that should go to grievance cell. So institute should have a proper grievance cell where the student is getting less marks. Say male faculty is giving a less marks to the girl students, or in the project, that should not go to that ICC. But if it comes under the sexual harassment, if the male faculty is bothering the students to get why she got the less marks, and this comes under all these points what I discussed, then it is ICC. And then when the complaint can be submitted, that also there is a formula. So it is not that anytime you can go and complain, but immediately you have to do it. I will come to that. But sometimes, when kids are small and the girls are small, or like in a family or in somewhere, it's very difficult to complain. They don't know how to formulate the problem. Then they can approach to their relatives or friends, batchmates, or in the office, they can also go to National Commission of Women, of State Commission of Women. And also, sometimes it is very important who are knowledgeable in the incident. That, previously somebody like handled these cases, then they can guide them. So they need to know where to go. So that's what ICC was formulated in such a way that ICC's members are responsible for listening to these problems which is coming under the ICC's purview, and then they will address the ICC from the ICC. So ICC's chair holds a very important position, and they have to understand that they cannot misuse their power. The power is not to take a personal grudge. These powers the India government didn't give because it is beyond the institute. ICC functions separately. Even ICC's functioning director cannot make a comment until recommendation goes to the director. So that we have to understand, this is not a platform to taking a personal grudge, but to prevent the sexual harassment. So that's what we have, the ICC function in a very strict manner. So after receiving a complaint, we need to respond through email within 24 hours. Judge the case whether it is under the purview of ICC or not. If it is not ICC, immediately give it to the grievance cell, but you have to make a recommendation why you are giving it to the grievance cell, not to avoid your responsibility. Then if it is not under the purview of ICC, it will be well documented with proper justification, as I just mentioned, before forwarding to the case of disciplinary action committee. As I said, space related issues, reagent related issues. Sometimes in the lab, it happens between the students. And then you can meet the complainant and the respondent separately. Never ever meet them together. And you meet with the members of your committee, and you can also, you have to write each and every day's discussion in a minute form so that you are not missing anything, and that has to be signed by the complainant when you are asking him, her to come. Same way, you are taking the signature from the respondent in a separate sheet. So they know that whatever they said, that is correct, because the words goes lost in translation. So no verbal, and even you can ask permission to record. But these things is highly confidential, so we cannot share in the public. The moment the cases come, I have realized there will be 10 tons of people will come. Hey, there is a case. Hey, what is going on? You can, like, if you are ICC chair or member, you have to say, if the cases come, I don't need to discuss with you, because it is a confidential one. Please do not bother me. If still they bother, it happened several times here, like, the committee is functioning. Some people started writing in the newspaper, writing in the public media. Let them do, because you are doing your job. Do not get perturbed, because you are following the formula. It is a formula now. So no need to worry. But always make sure it is not a platform to take personal grudges or giving a favor to someone, not giving a favor to anyone. And when you are listening, you have to give a patient hearing, because if you are in a hurry or if you want to take a quick decision, always people does mistakes. So that's what you have to listen very carefully. And during the proceedings, members are supposed to maintain the privacy throughout the investigation. They suppose even they should not tell to their husband if the husband-wife is working in the same place. If the woman is a part of the ICC, they should not discuss with that, because that they are breaking the privacy, and that is a crime too. And if anybody bothers the functioning of ICC, that is a crime, equal crime. So here we need to take the report very carefully, which will be provided to the director. And that is only recommendation. It is not that we can say that, okay, discharge this person or you can suspend. No. Director will take a call. Company chair will take a call. We are not responsible for that. So ICC convener and members are not obliged to give any information regarding cases to deans, HODs during the investigation procedure. But if for the if it helps in investigation, like you see, two staffs are working in the very late night. Maybe one conference is going on. They're supposed to work. They need to think about it, that why they gave the responsibility like this. So when there is nobody, only one man and one woman. So that's what the HODs or chairs have to ask the permission, that are you comfortable to work alone with him or her in a closed place. You have to take their consent. But we generally don't do, we think, oh, they are in the staff, we will give the responsibility. No. So any final decision or recommendation we'll make to the director, that needs to go to HOD and deans depending on the related cases. If it is a student related, it will go to Dean of Student Affairs. If it is faculty related, it goes to Dean of Faculty Affairs. But if it is student related, it need not to go to Dean of Faculty Affairs, because it is a very completely confidential matter. So here ICC is fact finding and recommending body, and they have to take a call within a period of 3 months. It cannot go for a year, but the first ICC's report investigation with the file has to be completed within 3 months. There should be an external member, because sometimes all the members may be in one side, and against whom the respondent has to comment about his activities. That's what an external member is always need to be there to understand the gravity of the case. An external member should be aware of the fact that what is the ICC's functioning. You cannot just, when 2000 Act came, people said, oh, he will do that, he is experienced. Come on, yeah, because they are not aware of this ICC. They may be senior in science, they may be senior in the institutes, but they may not be aware of the ICC. They may not like to read the ICC. So we should not do the mistake that external members, we can just ask anybody to solve, oh, my friend will do that. I know someone will do that. No, you have to ask, you have to have a proper selection. And then only you can make them as external members. And each member should sign the minutes. If there is some disagreement, they can give a note of dissent. But note of dissent should not be ignored, because each and every point is important. But we have to see if someone is purposely bothering the system, we have to tell that person that they have to follow the formula. And then final recommendation with the statements will be going to the respondent with the signature of all that what are the complaints against him. Most of the time I got a phone call that, shall I give the copy to the respondent? Yes, you have to give, because they need to know what is the charge against them. And they can also file a case that, no, the complaint against me is false. I have to give a patient hearing for that too. So it is not that only the complainant, we have to receive the complaints and we have to act against the respondent. We have to investigate thoroughly. And all these steps can be found in the Gazette of the POSH Act 2013. So as I say, it is a formula. When I first started working, there were so many questions were coming, and thank God and thanks to them that they helped me to understand that Gazette. But still, I don't know whether I know everything. But at least if any question comes, you don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to discuss with anything. You just go to POSH Act. You will learn by yourself. You are your best teacher. Because if you discuss with people, you will be confused. Because everybody reads different perspective. But there are no chances of us have different perspective. It is just like a formula. Follow that. And the ICC meeting is to be held in every 3 months and should be documented, because we have to send the reports to the other people. Do I have a few minutes, or shall I stop? Hello?
Yes, continue. Yes. Few minutes you have.
Yeah, I will be finishing in 3 minutes. Okay, so the thing is here, when you make all these documents, you have to keep it in under lock and key, and there you should maintain that it cannot be opened by any member except the presence of chairperson or the chair's nominee. So 2 people should be there in opening the locker to get back the paperwork. And time to time in 3 months, when you are making that, how many cases you keep, if you make a practice, then when you're from ministry, we always get letters like how many cases you received. We don't need to go back and forth. Every 3 months we make a minute, we make a tabulation that this many cases came, that no cases came, or these are the cases which need not to act on because it was solved by this. That is very important, because we need to report to the ministry that how many cases we have handled How many we took a decision? If we didn't take a decision, why we didn't take a decision, and what is hindering us? So that is very important. And ICC can arrange awareness or orientation to the students and staffs with external speakers, so they are aware of that fact, so that you can prevent. ICC members can attend seminars related to POSH with the help of the institute, because that helps a lot in learning. Take my words, I didn't know much about it, but when the responsibility came to me, instead of doing my science, I started learning that. I attended several POSH seminars given by different people who are already aware of these facts. It helped me a lot. So this is the one. We need to have appropriate disciplinary action, and a complaint will be made to the appropriate authority for action of accordance with the law, and to ensure that the victims of the sexual harassment and the witness should not be victimized because they were the witness or they are victim, so they will be punished. No, they should be protected. So in some cases, you can ask the victim to stay at home so they are not feeling unprotected or feeling threatened that the friends or faculties, they are bothering them. So with that, I must say that we need to, during the inquiry, we need to have written request of the complaint all through, no verbal, and without signature, no meeting should end. Don't forget to take the signature, and always you have to, like, most of the time when they come, they feel they are very much unprotected. You have to give them the security to come, so they should not feel threatened. And you can, as I said, transfer the complainant or respondent to any other place, like if it is possible to make them separate. For students, we do a lot, and for faculties also, it is possible to do, and it has, if needed, we have to do that, because that actually subsides the situation and people understand, because when they are seeing each other, they may get mad at each other. That is not right. And the grant leave to the complainant for up to 3 months in addition to her entitled leave. So the complainant can stay at home to be away from this situation, because it can be traumatized sometimes, and distance the respondent from reporting on the work performance, writing confidential report, or aggrieved. Because if someone is in a very high position, we have to think about it. Restrain the respondents from supervising academic activities or aggrieved. So then the situation will be under control. So now there is a She Has Act came, and this is, sometimes we always have a problem, because some cases come after 1 year, because the complainant thinks, now I'm safe, I got the RECO, I can complain. No, within 3 months of the last incident, and completion of the inquiry within 90 days, submission of the report of ICC or LCC to the employer or the higher authority within 10 days of completion of the inquiry, implementation of the recommendation by employer within 60 days, and appeal within 90 days or of the recommendations. And this is very confidential committee, so the Act prohibits to disclose any document which the complainant, respondent, and witnesses gave it to you. So it has to be very much protected. And if they breach any confidentiality, there will be a penalty of 5,000 rupees. So people has to be aware of that. And there is an exception, because sometimes judges need to know. That time you need to call the HOD or head of the section. That time they should not be penalized. So these are mainly the obligations of the employer with SH Act. And what I already covered, and due to time constraint, I'm not going to read that, but almost everything we covered. Main thing is institute should have a ICC committee, and the women, if they choose to do so many, both files and FIR with the police and complainant, with the complaint committee simultaneously, because sometimes if it is more than 90 days, it cannot be taken. But if they feel threatened that institute may not be safe place, they can also go to police and they can lodge a FIR. So this is, but everything they can do, but they have to remember, again, ICC is not a personal agenda committee. There is any false and malicious complaint or unnecessary creating problem can be a punishable offense. And that everyone from ICC chair to ICC members to all the faculties, all the students, they need to remember, even the higher authorities, that no false and malicious complaint. So this, we need to keep calm and support our equality and to do work together to make a serene work environment. Thank you all for your patience. And I'm not summarizing because I already spoke a lot. So I think it's now it is open.
Thank you, madam, for your valuable talk and the provisions, reiterating the provisions of Basic Act. Now the house is open for discussion and question answers. Chairperson ICC. Okay.
Open
Any
up
questions?
anything, yeah. Yeah, I'm understanding. See a lot all the time. I don't think a microphone is needed because I'm very loud.
But can them, I think,
Yeah.
you have to talk there because otherwise the online people won't be able to.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. Yeah. So, questions. Now, I think that's most important. So, we had a lot of young students in the audience too. So, I guess we can now take the questions. Any of us, if you have a question, you can let us also know that from whom you want to have the answer. So, please, the floor is now open for questions. Any
Question online can also.
Yes, online questions are also. So people who are online and also here, physically present, if you have any questions, please let us know. Yeah, in the meet also you can probably raise your hand, can you?
Yeah.
So any questions, please? Maybe people are tired or I don't know. Okay, there's a question from Professor Rajiv Mitra.
So my question is regarding the workplace. So workplace in an academic institute is altogether different than any corporate or any government. So what happens in government and corporate sector, anyone gets accused and here that person gets punishment, appointment in some other office or in other department, something like that. But here you cannot do that because it's a relationship between the guide and the student. So often it happens that the student is so scared of her PhD that they do not come across.
Yes.
So do you have any solution for that? This is, this is the action taken, not the ICC problem. This is the action taken.
Yes, that's right. So, Professor Das Sharma, do you want to, because since you have dealt with a lot of cases, do you want to take this question?
So if I understand the question is in academic institutes, we can function like that or government institutes, but in academic institutes, we have student and teachers like mentors and the PhD students. So how to avoid that, right? That is the question, if I understand properly.
The punishment is, in government and corporate sector, the punishment is very fast, and they got punishment appointment in some other office or in other city,
Section.
other district, other section, things like that. But here you cannot do that, no?
No, sir,
What is
that's
the
not
way?
right. Can you switch on your video so I know to whom I am talking so I can explain it better? So, sir, anything comes like, first thing is, as I said, within 24 hours, we have to act on the complaint. And the moment the complaint comes, then, you have to start investigation. And investigation may take week to find out. Then first level of your recommendation should go to the director. If it is too more extent, then the person can be suspended. It can happen in that way. Like person can be suspended, not like that, like he or she is like complainant and respond. It's just for the investigation. And I think too many participants. And if this is required, because all the cases has come, so then within a month you have to submit the report. And just like ICC should not be separated.
So, yeah.
Jayashree,
My concern is that in corporate or in government section, whenever you are transferring your your superior, your life is not jeopardized. But here in an academic institution, where you are suspending your supervisor, the life of the student is jeopardized. There is a
Absolutely.
practical problem.
No, can I answer that question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think Madam has clearly clarified. Here is in such a situation, university has to allot different guide. Same guide will not be continued. Student interest will be protected. Student will never ever going to suffer at all. Then
I
secondly,
guess suppose it's PhD students, they are working with the person. So suppose there's a PhD student working with someone. I guess that's Professor Mitra's. I think if I
Yeah.
understand the question correctly, he's trying to make this point that suppose a PhD student's advisor, performs sexual harassment toward the student, then how do you deal with the case? Because if you stop the student from working with that particular person, then the student's career might be a problem. And how do you solve this problem when the advisor themselves are the harasser?
right. Solution already, the UGC directives have been, provided. In such a situation, the university, the doctoral committee has to allot the different guide. This is one. The requirement have to be. Otherwise, we can't conduct any fair proceeding. There will be question of fair proceeding.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Professor Das Sharma has raised a hand. So
Yeah. So I want to say, this is a very valid question, sir, what you asked. It is very true. Like in academia, you can change the guide, but he or she may not get the right guide what she chose in the first place. That is a very pertinent question, and it is a problem for in academia that it happened several times. Like when the student changed the guide, they have to start from the scratch, and then if anything happens, they wasted like a certain time. So these all needed to be taken into account. Like the student will be given extra time to she has to move from one lab to another lab, and also institute should be aware of that. That's what the POSH Act for our institutes, like higher education, has to be more preventive rather than taking action. Because taking action, you can expel someone, but we cannot give them the time back. It's a very pertinent question, and thank you, Dr. Chingappa, to bring into that. But in research, what happens?
Correct. Madam, similar incident happened in Mysore University and other university where they had to work out the solution.
Absolutely.
Because the ICC, the law which emphasizes for fair proceeding. If university is not taking an action, then there will be the further challenge of the same decision before the court. Matter will go to the High Court, writ, all those problems will be there.
But sir, that's what I think prevention will be very much important and awareness.
Yeah.
So that should not happen. And I believe, though I am a woman, and I believe in that, if each and every woman are dignified, they can stop any type of sexual harassment. Because
that is why, madam, right, you rightly pointed out, conciliation is there.
Exactly.
It is the duty of the committee members, to brief the conciliation proceeding. We can, sort it out this problem before we start inquiry. Once the inquiry starts, inquiry will go on and on. Nobody can stop the inquiry, neither the court also, unless, we don't follow some basic principles. Madam, you made one very important point, recommendation of the committee. By and large, it has to be honored by the employer. If they are not honoring, then they have to give, proper reason for that one. There are plenty of the cases we come across, matter went to High Court, the Supreme Court. It will create litigation. Yeah, of course, if you look at law, if they are not honoring, then there will be penalty for the institution.
But sir, I think I didn't make it clear that we are not like ICC is not a decision-making committee, but recommendation has to be. That's what is investigation.
Yeah.
It is a high-power committee. But
Correct.
most of the time, people think that ICC gave a recommendation. That's what it is.
Madam, yeah.
Higher authority also have to formulate a committee, because take my words in that way, because I went through that. It is not that discipline ICC will give a recommendation and the higher authority will take it. Higher authority has to find another committee to find out the activities of the ICC. If you go through this process, as I went through, I realized like how much work it is. Then there will be a jury. Even one of our head of the department has to be the jury. So it is not that we take a decision, because most of the time, in the institute, what happens, people think, oh, ICC's recommendation is the final. No, ICC can recommend, but that has to be justified also.
Correct.
That's what
Every
I want.
committee for that matter only. All the inquiry committee, be it a sexual harassment committee, any other committee in India, they can't take a decision. They are recommendatory authority. And, the law is very clear. They can't reject our report unless they're furnishing a reason for doing so.
Yes.
Sir,
So,
but here I have a question.
Yeah.
I have
I
a
guess,
question. Yeah, sorry.
relating to Professor Mitra's question, I think that you are thinking about the academic component, but that can even happen even without a sexual harassment case. For example, we have plenty of situations where for some academic reasons or some adjustment reasons, the student is not, the advisor might not want to continue with the student. So I think that part, that what to do if the student files a complaint against the advisor, I guess that academic part can be dealt based on, I think, what Professor Chengappa said, that the UGC recommendations. We can always ask the student that what do they think, and we have to. So it's a loss they will have to bear, but then that loss can also happen for other reasons. Apart from sexual harassment, there can be other reasons also, where students need to change their advisors, or advisors don't want to work with the students anymore. So that's a thing that we have to deal with according to that procedure. If that answers your question.
I can add to that. It is like a lock and key. The mentor and student, all locks are good, all keys are good, but they need a right match. So students should be aware of that, whose lab they are going. Sometimes, some faculties, like they have uses abusive words. Authorities started to taking action into it, but they have to, if they choose this lab, they have to be very particular about it, so they should do all the homeworks also to prevent it. So it is not like before, we just without knowing somebody is joining somebody's lab. But that's what I think Dr. Shahad Ashupta's question is very important, that it can happen in for other reason too.
Rosamito, does that
Kind of, but
we can discuss more, I guess. Yeah. So any other questions from anybody in the audience or anybody who's joining online? Okay. Any other questions? If not, I just actually want to, I always make this comment, if I'm allowed to, that probably the most important thing is the intent. We should have the intent to act rightly as much as possible. We are humans. To err is human. It should not be like, oh, I have been given this responsibility, I'll have to do that. That's true. Yes, we have been asked by the government, and that's why we have to do an awareness program. It's not that aspect. I think the more important aspect is that we ourselves should have the right kind of intent to act or to do the right things within the purview. Of course, we are all limited human beings, but within our limited resources or within our own limitations, we still must make the best use of law and our judgment and the greater good of our discipline, of our society, to have the right kind of intent in eradicating sexual harassment or gender bias, etc., in our institutions. I think this is probably most important. That
Yes. That's why I also made a point, no person need to fear about this law. Only, this law will, the person who is indulging the sexual harassment, perpetrating sexual harassment, no, their life is going to be at stake. Because service rules are, I don't know, in your university, there is a service laws. Service rules are very, will not tolerate all those, the activities once a person is proved guilty.
And also counseling is very important.
Yes.
Like, for if some people, like, they may not understand where they are doing mistakes. So
Yes.
in that cases, counseling is very, very important in academic
Important.
institutions.
Correct. There is counseling and also need to, the create awareness, what amount to sexual harassment, what is not amount to sexual harassment. There is a need to differentiate the thing also.
okay, so there is a question from a student, or yes, there is a question. Somebody raised the hand.
I have a question. Sometimes what happens, not necessarily in the academic institution, in the corporate, while working in the institution, or when someone is inside the corporate, he does not speak about the harassment what happened with her, if not is that much violent. And she decides when she will leave the institution or corporate, we have taken records of the harassment, like some wrong messages, WhatsApp message or something, wrong voice record, and she decides to lodge a complaint after leaving the institution or corporation. If any woman or lady lodge a complaint after leaving the institution, then how the ICC or other department will take that complaint?
So I think there is a very specific rule that from you have to do it within, I think, 3 months. Yeah, sorry, within 3 months after the occurrence of the last event.
Incident.
So there is a timeline within which you have to do it.
So in that case, he can go to go to police station and file a FIR. Provided limitation period, we need to look into it.
Now you may ask that suppose somebody doesn't file a complaint within the within 3 months, then what should ICC do? And if it's a very serious complaint?
Yes. See, generally, madam.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to give a very really correct answer to that. But I would think that sometimes we have to always follow the law, and sometimes we have to be judicious case by case, that what is this case and if we can make some reconciliation. I mean, not everything, I don't think we can just follow the rule book. And so that's why there is, I think, Professor Das Sharma and Professor Jennifer said that's why this reconciliation thing, etc. there. So I wouldn't take that question right now, that what happens if somebody passes that period and then ICC says, oh, you haven't complained within 3 months, so I don't think we can help you. I don't know if that is the right attitude.
No, I can answer to that question, because it happened to one of my, when I was the chair of that ICC. So as it crossed 30 days, as I said, it is a very formula, right? Now we have to follow the formula. I wrote to that complainant that when you didn't complain at the date you said it happened, it is more than a year. So it is not under the purview of ICC, but she can go to FIR, she can go to lodge a complaint. Even she can lodge a complaint in her new institute that she was traumatized that time, but it is not the purview of that institute where she was on that time, as it is crossed 1 year. So this is a formula. There is no, yes. And after that I received several mails from several angles that why you didn't accept it. I always wrote that answer that it crossed. Please see the rules and see the rule book. It is not a view of ICC. I said
correct. And also, madam, the victim can file a complaint to the disciplinary authority other than the ICC.
Yes.
Yes.
And employer can set up an inquiry committee for the matter only. No 1-man commission or 2-man commission.
And that's what, if you see, I also pointed out one thing.
Yeah.
that we have to keep a record that whether that person is repeatedly doing that or it is just a sporadic case. If it is a repeated offender, then serious action needed to be taken. A disciplinary committee has to be formed. And
Yes.
then if it is a faculty, dean of faculty will be making a disciplinary committee to talk to that person. If it is a student, student affairs will make a committee and talk to the student. So he or he should stop that. And also another thing is very, very important that if it is not, it is crossed the days, but understanding the depth of the
Correct.
situation, you have to also take action against that person if there is a investigation can be started from the complainant in that institute.
Correct.
So
And
this
also,
basically-
we need to see
So
the
I
service
think
regulation.
Professor Shahbaz Gupta has a question probably. Tanushree,
Yeah, but my question is very different from what is being discussed now.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It is more on your talk. You showed some statistics of the academic fellowship.
Yeah.
Is it considering all three academics? Or?
Yeah. This is actually in three academic panel. They wrote a women in. Yeah, that's
Because I'm very curious to find the lowest percentage is for chemical sciences.
yes.
And,
This is 2016 data.
Yeah, and that does not follow the stereotype concept we
Yes,
have.
that's right. I was also very surprised, but this is taken from this is inter-academic panel. So Ram Ramashwamy and Rohini Kaur. Yes. So, but maybe that has changed in the last 5 years. This is an older report.
Okay, I just did clarify.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So, is there any? I think. So sorry. So maybe can you were continuing, Professor Chengappa? Yeah, saying something, I guess. Sorry
Nothing.
about that.
Just adding to the Madam Jayasri point. That's why every institution we need to see the service regulations. Depending upon the service regulation, an inquiry can be initiated against any person.
That's right. So, any other questions? Yes, there is a student or there was somebody who raised their hand.
Suppose if in a workplace, as a friend, if my friend or some other people is like sexually harassed or like harassed by his professor or something, and that student doesn't want to like inform the ICC or something. So what should be my job as a friend do? I mean, if I go to ICC or complain, will ICC act on it?
So my understanding is that the person who is so the survivor has to complain the ICC. But what you can do as a friend is, if you see that your friend is not willing to, you can always bring it to the notice of the institution. If you cannot probably file official complaint to the ICC, but you can always. So suppose that we say that Annai je kore or Annai je shahe. So if you see that something wrong is happening, it is also our responsibility as a member of the institution to stop that. So you can bring it to the notice of the dean of students or somebody, and action has to be initiated. This is what I always tell my students, that if you see something improper, speak up. I think Professor Jayashida Sharma also showed in a slide that we have to speak up. So probably that is the way to go, but others can take on this question. That what should somebody do if they see that their friend is being harassed, but the friend is unwilling or little scared to file a complaint?
So I can say that will be a disciplinary committee, and as I said again, record book. Like say today somebody, like it happened several times, the student is very close to the professor and you are saying like you have seen that something is going on with them and that is bothering other students. Of course, you have every right to complain to the ICC. But ICC officially cannot take that because there is a mutual consent and that is not complained by the respondent. But ICC will put it in a record, their record, and ICC will transfer that file to disciplinary committee that some unwanted situation making other people irritations, and that is called peer irritations. and then disciplinary committee will be acting on that, that they cannot do that under the premises. It happens between the students. Hostel, like, we have a lots of students, so sometimes students complain that their behavior is bothering some students. So as Dr. Shah said very nicely, that online je Korea, online je Shahi, but as per the, act of POSH, only complainant can take the complaint, but if she cannot complain, she is shy, or she doesn't know how to put it into words, or she is traumatized, then if she approaches you as a friend or someone, you can also take that case. But if that complainant is not complaining, then your complaint or your accusation won't be a survive project, because it has to be stopped, because there is many other things can irritate you. So but it will go to disciplinary committee, that that is bothering you, so a warning will go to the faculty that your behavior with that students, though the students didn't complain, but is bothering other students. That's the way our institute should function.
As per the sexual harassment policy, every institution, every university has to set up a support committee, consist of student representative and one faculty. The complainant can approach support committee, representative of the students.
That's some awareness committee. So
yes, but
that's apart from ICC. On top
support
of
committee,
ICC.
it is mandatory. Every university has to constitute support committee.
Yes. But always complainant has to come up. If you take a case and the complainant said, who told you to complain?
Yes.
It is not my
support committee. Support committee can write the complaint and submit it to ICC with taking the signature of the victim.
Yeah, victim has to agree.
Yeah, victim has to sign.
Yeah, otherwise it will be a discipline.
No. Yeah.
So I think you had a question.
My question was, we have at times we may see.
No, use the mic.
Online people will
Online
hear the
people
question.
will not be able to.
And I think when your mask is on, we cannot hear you properly.
Yeah.
My question is, at the time of the 5th year, some students come across such incident. Changing of supervisor may not be the last and final solution. And most of the cases, it is just the scholars are bearing it till they defend their thesis, and they are just close the chapter and go out. And nobody knows about these cases. There are cases. But is there any solution to this problem? As per the UGC rules, university rules, you have to go with your situation. You can't change at that point of time your supervisor. So is there any solutions? I think as an expert, you may have some solutions.
Dr. Chellappa wanted to
Yes, Salini madam, already I made a point on this note, because there is a clear-cut rules, regulations, because we can't conduct a fair proceeding. Therefore it is the university has to take a call allotting the different guide.
It is quite impossible, sir, at the last stage of your thesis.
Can I comment?
Yes, please.
Because I faced this situation as a part of ICC in
Yes.
different institute, not in our institute. And this was precisely almost similar situation. Then an independent committee was constituted, and the student would do the last writing of the paper with minimal interaction with
Yes.
the supervisor, because on 5th year it is kind of expected you have done all your necessary calculation or experiment or whatever. And then all the interaction was through that.
Yes, that's right. So we have a second person who continuously, second person or committee who
And
monitors.
thesis was submitted and signed by the supervisor, but rated by this committee.
That's right. So there's a monitoring.
Yes, the monitoring.
So there should not be any fear of
Correct.
that.
Then
No, absolutely
The
not.
job of the monitoring committee is to ensure that the student is
Safe.
not under the fear.
Yes.
Safe. And the student could submit, went for postdoc, and everything went on.
Then, madam,
There is
as per
absolutely no fear. I mean, you have to be very
doctoral
yes.
committee one who take a call. Doctoral committee, consists of the chairman of
Yes,
the
yes,
doctoral
that's
committee.
right.
Because today, role of the individual guide has been, reduced. It is, collective decision by the doctoral committee as per the UGC guidelines. I don't know it is applicable to science department. As per
No, I
the law
think
is, as per the law and social science is concerned, it is a doctoral committee. They will take a call.
You're also having thesis committee.
yeah, and RSC is also, na? Research Advisory Committee is
Yeah,
also there.
yeah. Research advisory committee. Sorry, research advisory committee.
So every student has a research advisory committee.
Yeah.
So there is absolutely, I don't see any reason for fear.
True.
Yeah. In this point, I can say no one needs to fear that okay, I will be victimized or anything. It is your right to have your
Yes.
serenity. So that's what, and you see at the end of 5th year, if it happens, it's very unlikely, because in 5 years, that means you have tolerated. So that's what it should not happen. The moment it happened, I can't believe that one faculty will start at the 5th year if there is no mental problem. But mental problem can happen. You immediately have to note it to that ICC, and ICC will contact your supervisors like Research Progress Committee. And always remember one thing in science, mentor-student relationship is very important, because you cannot, the way you cannot forget your last name, you cannot forget your mentor's name, because for job, everything it is associated, but that doesn't mean that you have to tolerate. So immediately, if anything happens, immediately report, and you are rectifying that person. You are not doing any harm. 5 years, you had a good relation. He is a good guide. He is mentoring you. You were happy. At the end, for some reason, if it is happening, you have every right to complain to ICC. ICC is not going to harm to you. Rather, they will give a warning to that person that something happened for his, it's a human being. Brain is very dynamic system, and sometimes it works. But if the warning goes repeatedly, the person won't do anything. So that's what you have every right not to fear, and you can correct someone. That's what is my suggestion in such.
Yes, and to add one more important point, there are cases we can conduct in-camera proceeding. We need not have to disclose the name of the victim in the interest of the fair inquiry. There are, Supreme Court cases, High Court cases we have. Even not only victim name, even, if a victim has a evidence, their name also we will not disclose to the, the complainant. Sorry, defendant. That provisions the ICC can follow. So
I
that
think
you can
sometimes
confidentiality of inquiry.
Sorry. Students sometimes I know have this fear that even if a complaint goes in my favor, what will happen to my career? Who will write me reference letters, etc.? That possibly comes up quite a bit. So I'm not mentioning name, but I was part of some incident. It was not actually sexual harassment, but some issues where actually the student did not take a recommendation from the advisor, and there was someone else who could write a recommendation letter for the student and explain that why the student could not approach for a reference letter, because there was this harassment case involved or this issue involved. So I know these are much harder to do than said, but if we can have an environment where there is no fear, where we always have the faith that I will not be victimized, there will be fairness. I think most of this comes because we grow up in societies where we think that we will not be fairly treated, power will be abused on us. I think from that fear, we sort of have these inhibitions about, going against, oh, this is my advisor, this is the authority. If I go against them, that will harm me, because we grow up in an environment where we feel that justice will not be done. But gone are the days. I mean, should make our institutions such that we should not have that fear and have the faith on our institution that will be treated fairly. As I said, Harvey Milk's quote that hope is the only thing we can live on. I know these are fancy words, because in reality, students may feel, others may feel that you are talking nice words, but that's not the reality. I agree, but we have to make it the reality. That part I'm sure all of you will agree. And that can happen if we all speak up, stay united, and ensure that we always go to right procedures and have the right kind of intent and right kind of environment, right kind of culture. We try to propagate that. I say that we make our country, we make our institutions, we make our society. It is us who make it. This is democracy. There's not that, there will be laws and rules. We make the place we want to see it, how it should function. I see it that way. Okay, I guess we have done quite a bit, and then I should ask Ms. Konar, Nivedita Madam, to come and say a few words.
Thank you all for your speeches, our honorable guest, and your speeches, and the students for your patience and listening. Okay, thank you all. We are having tea outside. Please have your tea and